Hello everyone and welcome to this panel discussion at the World Passenger Festival. Please welcome Jerry Angrave chairing today's panel discussion, as well as a superb selection of panelists. During the panel discussion, you have the option to ask questions. If you would like to submit a question, please make use of the chat box to the side of the video, which will allow you to ask questions in real time. This panel will be recorded and made available afterwards via the event agenda. Okay, without further ado, over to you, Jerry.
Thanks, Adam, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm Jerry Angrave. I'm Customer Experience Director at Empathise, and it's a real pleasure to be moderating this session on digitizing the customer experience with accurate customer information. And there's a lot in that, so I'm really glad that we have a panel of experts who are going to throw a lot more light onto the issues. So please welcome Ronaldo Fuss, who is Market Research and Customer Experience Specialist at BLS, one of Switzerland's largest rail and transport operators. Katrine Jensen, who's business owner of Traffic Communications at SJ, a train operator and travel partner in Sweden. Bernardo Tononi, commercial director at Trenitalia, operating as C2C and Avanti West Coast in the UK, and also part of the West Coast Partnership, looking in the future to delivering HS2. Jan Luyben, welcome Jan, who's information manager at GVB, public transport operator in Amsterdam, and Callum Ridley, who is a senior technical consultant at UP3, who's, as I understand it, life revolves around digitisation, helping companies to modernise and digitise their workflows and customer processes. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We know how important it is to communicate effectively, and done with real empathy. It turns a very binary transaction into a lasting relationship, and with that comes the commercial benefits. So the demands of passengers have always been high, and it's just been increasing relentlessly over the years. And then of course along comes 2020 to raise the stakes even further in terms of passengers having relevant, timely, personal, accurate access to information. So it's a really topical theme to be exploring this afternoon. And for the audience watching on, if you do have any questions of the panel, please use the chat box, as Adam said, to send those in, and we'll put them to the panel. So given that as the context, if we might explore first kind of what's changed. We'll get into kind of what have you done about it in a moment, but in terms of what you have seen in terms of passengers' behaviours and attitudes change. Ronaldo, if I might come to you first, what's your data and insight telling you about changes in kind of the drivers of frustration, or what information needs your travellers have now?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, and also to the festival, to the possibility to be part of this. Regarding your questions, I mean, that's quite a wide range of possible answers now. In case of the BLS, my company, it must be considered that we also operate in some rural areas, so we can see that this rather leads to kind of an increase in individual needs regarding passenger information. So some still want to read departure times at a printed poster at the station, and other ones a digital travel guide with real-time information. So this is certainly a challenge, because we want to reduce these thousands of channels and information touchpoints, but we have today still this goal to reach everyone without excluding any marginalized groups, for example. So a recent study, for example, we used a Kano method, showed that, however, beside this digitalization or digital shift, that service such as a push message with the app in case of a train breakdown or cancellation, they are still not yet expect as standard. So they would still lead to an above average satisfaction with our passengers. And for those who saw my presentation on Monday, this is also another reason why we should like or would like to push this push service forward, because we do have kind of a challenge there that right now we do have this main app from the SBB which offers this service, but our own app, BLS, especially for the car shuttle passengers, there is still quite a lack of information and also big potential to deliver them this information they need.
And have you found the whole COVID situation has accelerated the delivery of some of those initiatives based on the changing insight, or has it got in the way?
It's interesting. I would say the basic needs there are still the same, but I mean, in Switzerland, there was a big political discussion about this, if it should be mandatory to wear a mask in public transport or not. So I guess Switzerland actually was quite late when then they finally decided to go that direction. But nevertheless, within Switzerland was one of the first actions of the Swiss government, and the passengers, that they do not forget to wear the mask. There were loudspeaker announcements in the train, I would say every 5 minutes or so, and that was really annoying. So that caused maybe that was the main reason of negative passenger feedback during the first month of COVID. So not something because the basic information or the basic information needs, they were still the same. And also for us, it was quite a fun fact and also a bit surprising, because that most passengers, I would say at least 95%, they were happy about this compulsory masks. And passengers have even actively demanded this before. So that became the #1 issue at our customer care center. Before it was mandatory to wear a mask. So that was for us quite surprising, and we didn't expect that. We expected much more feedback about causing trouble about wearing this mask, or also we feared a bit this shift towards the car, towards the individual transportation, instead of wearing a mask in public transport.
Right. Okay, Katrina, if I come to you in Sweden, how have things changed and evolved in your kind of digital? It's interesting hearing Ronaldo there talk about, yes, it's partly digital, but we still have to remember there are real people, and sometimes it's just a very human to human contact. But how have things changed and evolved in Sweden this year for you?
No, it's been a big change for all of us, I think, global and even here in Sweden. But what we have done is still the same. It's all about the people and communicate the way they want us to communicate with them. And we do that through all of our channels, digital and in physical meeting with them on board our train. And we don't have any masks on here in Sweden. We keep distances. And that's a big part of the communication that we make as well. So they can, the customer can feel safe.
And are your customers asking for more information about how busy the trains are? I'm given that you have to, distancing is the main thing. Has that raised the importance of giving them information about how busy a particular train might be?
Exactly. That's the kind of details they want to have. And they want to have that before the journey, and they also want to have that access to that information at the station when they're going to access the train. So that's a big part of the information that we give. Yeah. And
thank you. And Bernardo, on West Coast, Avanti West Coast, and also C2C, how have things evolved for you this year in terms of the digitization, in terms of, as we just heard, timetabling, booking, refunds, that kind of thing?
consider that crowding it's probably within the three main aspects that cause complaints from a customer, amongst with punctuality. So both C2C and Avanti have invested and are still investing a lot in giving as much as possible accurate information about crowding. So the customer today needs to get to the station feeling that once it will be on board, there will be enough space to have a safe journey. And this is where both Avanti and C2C have been pushed at the beginning, just with the standard communication channels as onboard announcement. This is more on Avanti. C2C has a very slim commuter service. It's a big tube rather than a train operator. So, but Avanti has invested a lot in onboard comms and also in station comms. But the more the situation stays in, the more we are pushing for a more direct way of linking to the customers. And I expect that we will have a more advanced push notification solution coming closely. Now, I still hope that the vaccine will come before my push notification for our day-by-day life, and also because the process to implement this feature, it's complex in a fragmented world as the UK railways, but we are seeing the change from massive and sometimes annoying communication to more one-to-one comms, but respecting what are the needs that our customer wants to satisfy, and which is my train crowded, is my coach crowded, or is my train on time? Shall I keep sleeping in my bed because I'm afraid today there's no train to Scotland, or shall I rest at the station?
Yeah, it's really interesting what the priorities have become, and what the is it fair to say that sort of information is now a basic expectation? If a traveller is booking a ticket, they expect to be informed about yes, whether it's running on time or not, but how busy it is now. Is that a basic expectation for all travellers now, do you think?
Yes, and it's funny that it's just such an expectation on the train. I don't think that customers have the same expectation on airlines, and I'm not sure that much more intense traffic as commuter lines can provide this kind of information. But I'm more an expert of railway than tube. You can ask Jan.
We'll come back to that point about how do we use digital technology to convey this sort of information. But Jan, if I may come to you next, what have you seen in Amsterdam about the changing information requirements, as well as some of the behavioural changes that you've seen on different modes of transport?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit of the same story. The information that they want is not really different, but the need of the information is improved. So they want to know for sure how they plan their journey and if there's enough space in the vehicle. So upfront we were working on that, but it had not much priority. And with the coming of COVID, we had to put full priority on showing how busy the vehicles are. And in the Netherlands, we have a national platform for passenger information. So it takes a lot of discussion with all parties to get clear on how to show the amount of the busyness in the vehicles the same way, so the passengers are informed equally. So that's, for example, one passenger is black and the others are white. So it shows that it's not busy in the vehicle, that they have the same meaning for all transport operators. So it took a lot of discussion, but the discussion has, because of the need of COVID, we had to do that quicker. So we started with this in October, I think, finally. But yeah.
Yeah, and it has. I think it has accelerated a lot of the things that we do, which is maybe not a bad thing to have come out of what's been quite a horrendous year, one way and another. Thank you, Callum. If I can come to you then, in terms of you, because you spend your life looking at digitization of workflows and customer experiences and stuff. What have you seen things change this year, both from a what customers want perspective, but also in terms of the technologies that can deliver that?
Sure. So obviously coming at this from a slightly different angle than the operators, because we don't have the same level of insights as they do, but with the work that we've been undertaking in partnership with them, I think one of the main things that we've seen is to try and create a more joined up approach to customer experience. So ensuring that data from all areas of the business can be used to inform decisions that they make at a customer level. And certainly things around passenger load counts. Certainly a lot of the operators have been striving for that for a while. Some already had it, but it's certainly increased the rate at which some of those operators have managed to implement that. But I think putting COVID aside for just a second, I think the operators as a whole are really starting to try and join up their thinking on everything that they do, because everything that they do affects the customer. So it's taking information from all processes in the business, whether that be defect management or things like that. So for instance, if you had onboard catering issues, being able to let the customer know that a service that they're due to catch may not be able to serve them coffee. So that really empowers the customer at that stage to make a decision on their own behalf about whether they will either replan their journey or just obviously put up without having the coffee on that service.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that issue about having the customer take control of their own journey. That's one of the advantages of digitization. So yeah, maybe if I can come back to Katrina, in terms of what sort of things have you done to give control back to customers? What type of digital experiences do your passengers have now that you may have already had in train anyway, but you're delivering to enhance their experiences?
And I think we had a very good start in what kind of channels we communicate with the customers through. But the information, as a colleague said here earlier, it's all about what kind of information they want to have instead. They still want the relevance in the information that you give, and we achieve that in the same way. We talked about push communication earlier, and that's an important part, how you can communicate and tell the customer how they should react and not react. What they want at this moment is useful communication, so they can act on it. That's the most important thing, I think.
And how do you find out what is the most important thing for them at the moment? Because presumably their priorities now are quite different from what they were 9 months ago.
Yeah, the best way is to ask.
Yeah.
So we ask and ask and ask, and we also when we develop our channels and the way we communicate, we ask if it's the right way to communicate or if we should change it. So that's our model.
So has it given you more insight into exactly who your customers are, and obviously therefore what their hopes, fears, expectations are?
Yeah, exactly. And from then from that part we can also we know what kind of parts we need to work on more and develop more and do the right things.
Yeah. Sure. Bernardo, on West Coast of Antti, are digital experiences all about AI, chatbots, and that kind of thing, or does it have to be balanced with a more of a kind of human approach as well? What sort of things have you been doing and putting in place this year, or have plans to that you could share with us?
So first of all, in Avanti, we are very proud of the people that are on board of our trains, and we think that this is one of the distinctive element of traveling with us. So what we are doing is to complement their presence and their smile with technological approach, and we have started the journey far away because one of the challenge for us, and I think that for a lot of train operator, has been to collect data to then provide information. So, for example, things as passenger counting are amazing, but you need to install a passenger counting system. Otherwise, you will never know how many passengers you have on board. Or the example of Callum on coffee. To get this insight, you need to do your staff ID in a way that it can gather this kind of information. So there is a plan to try to get data in an easier way than it was before. So we are trialing, for example, sensors that in toilets that understand whether the soap it's enough, given that cleanliness has become one of the key factors of your journey, and that can communicate with the cleaning team. So if the sensor detects that the soap thing it's running out of soap, at the next stop you can have it filled. So it's a mix between trying to understand, bothering almost every day our customer what they really need, as Catherine was saying, and at the same time building the way to capture this information. Once this is captured, then we'll be in the next step, which is how to assemble it, how to put a little bit of artificial intelligence, a little bit of sensor, a little bit of technology, and paint what customer wants to know in a way that it's personalizable. Now, I'm Italian, so I'm a great coffee lover. So probably what Callum was saying, no coffee on the train, would at least prevent me buy a coffee at the station. Admitted that there is a nice coffee at this station, admitted that there is a nice coffee on board. I'm not sure that Ian or Catherine will have the same anxiety when they take the train. So
you would like to know before you got on that train if there wasn't any coffee, for example,
yeah.
So you could buy it at the station.
Yeah, then I'm not sure that I'm not traveling because there's no coffee. But if I know that there's no coffee, at least I can use the in-station bar.
But it's interesting because we talk about digitizing experiences, and that the more information we have about passengers' behavior in general, but also individually, so they would know that you, Bernardo, every time you travel, you buy a cup of coffee on the train. So you'd like to think actually there'd be some AI way of telling, all right, he's booked on this train for whatever reason. There's no coffee, so let's send a push notification, as Catherine was talking about. So it's it becomes it does become very relevant and personal and timely, doesn't it? So there's all sorts of opportunities there.
I think taking it a step further as well, with that push notification of coffee, that example, coffee not available on the train, and taking it to a customer experience level, is that customer always buys a coffee. They can't get a coffee on the train, so give them a voucher to buy a coffee at the station. It's joining up all of those different systems that are already in place and just making sure that the customer can be as happy as they can be, even through times of, obviously coffee is relatively minor disruption to somebody's journey, but it's those little bits and pieces that really improve that customer experience.
Yeah. I mean, we're not quite there. I will be very happy when when coffee will be the issue of railway. It means that we have solved all the other issues. But I guess that this is where we will be making a step forward in delighting our customers, just instead of just providing an hygiene or base journey.
Sure. And Jan, in Amsterdam, what kind of information are you providing to your travellers now? And we touched before on you have different modes of transport, so you're acting as a almost like a moderator and bringing lots of pieces of information together. How are you using? How are you informing your travellers about their needs and their requirements now?
Unmute first. Actually, our strategy is also to inform our service personnel, because you know, there's so many questions that the passengers have that it's almost impossible to have it all digitally prepared. So what we also do is inform our service personnel, and we set a lot of our service personnel also in the streets and on the stations. We don't serve coffee, by the way. We do metro, tram, and buses. So that's something we cannot offer information about. But for example, we can think of the air conditioning, if it's working or not. That's going to be more relevant. We don't do that yet, but we want to work towards that as well. The footprint is also becoming more important. People are more focused now on the footprint, the way they travel. So that's also information we are working on. But like I said, with the business is something that's really important, by far the most important, and we realized that a couple of months ago. And for the rest, the service personnel, to inform them, that's our main strategy, because then you have also a personal contact with the passenger, and that's what they still appreciate. And what we don't want is that the service personnel has to tell to the passenger, look at your own mobile phone or your journey planner. So that's if you don't watch out, if you forget your own personal, then that is what's happening, and that's not the service level that we want to achieve.
Yeah, it's not great when customers know more than the employees because they've read it on a different news alert platform and stuff. So are you putting as much focus on digitizing the kind of employee experience as much as the customer experience?
Yeah, but we also were working on that already. So they have a mobile phone, and what you see is, because of the speed of the information that they need, also by daily different things happen. For example, inform passengers about the mouth caps and things like that. And what you see actually is that we just use apps, app groups with the teams. So they have a lot of information with their team leads and their colleagues to help each other to understand what's going on, if there's a certain diversion, is there certain questions from passengers. So by just using the tools and the applications that are common in use, like WhatsApp or other applications, that's actually what you see. That's one of the main tools that we use for it. And of course, we are working on other developments as well, but that takes a longer time to generate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. And just a quick reminder to the audience: please send in your questions for the panel if you've got any questions about digitizing experiences or anything we've talked about. Then please send that in. And just finally, in this section, Ronaldo, if I may come back to you, and on that point about employees, are the insights that you are generating, are they being fed through to the front line directly? Is that kind of a deliberate part of your strategy?
I can fully agree also with Jan. We do have similar or quite similar topics, because right now we are delivering or try to build up a online help center, which also should delivering the information to the passengers, but also to the employees as well, because this problem that the passenger knows more than the employee we know quite well. And also we do have this kind of problem that a lot of requests in our customer care center, they are basic questions such as departure times, delays, and all the kind of stuff which should be found, should or could be found easy online already now. And so they try to push this online help center a bit more to deliver the relevant information maybe before they even have to contact the customer care agent.
Right.
And
right.
Another interesting point I also can add up to Katrine, that we also really try to focus more than maybe a year before get in contact with the customer. We did a lot of flyering, for example, within the trains, also with QR codes and stuff. But a test 2 months ago wasn't quite well, because right now still the passenger, but also our staff in the train, they still not quite happy to give something physically which somebody else has touched before. So we now pilot testing kind of a customer feedback system within the train. You have kind of stickers with a call to action and QR code. And so we try to be in contact as much as possible with the customers. And till now, it seems that also the passengers, they really like to give feedback. We received more than 300 within 3 weeks. So and we just did 2 trains. So it's quite an interesting story, and we try to focus, for example, on that as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Treating feedback as an experience in its own right is really absolutely. Let's move on to the kind of the challenges of using this technology. We've already touched on a few of those, but given particularly rail operators, bus operators generally have a legacy IT infrastructure, lots of processes, lots of operations and stuff. What are the kind of the big challenges in pushing the company forward into this kind of digital world? And Callum, if I may come to you first, from your sort of broader perspective, what do you see as, I guess, A, the opportunities, B, the challenges that if a transport operator wants to improve the digitization of experiences, what sort of barriers are they going to come up against?
Sure. So, I mean, you obviously mentioned one already, which is the sort of legacy IT systems that are in place, but also obviously the complexity of the UK rail network, for instance, with all of those systems. I mean, there are numerous systems for all areas of the industry itself. So one of the challenges there is landing all of that data into one place that you can actually work with that data. Now, so I work for UP3, and we specialize in developing applications on the ServiceNow platform. So we're able to actually land that data when we can get it into that one platform for both reporting and trend analysis, but also for building applications on top of it. So I think that's like a key point there. It's not just putting data into a data warehouse, it's actually making use of that data once you've got it. Operationally, I think there's also some challenges around change in the rail industry. You often find that there's maybe a reluctance to change with some people at an operational level, and I think they probably, some of those people may not understand the impact that their data could actually have on customer experience if it was to be centralized into one single platform, where both it could improve customer experience, but actually could improve their process as well by making use of other data from around the business. And really, I think that's probably down to the fact that a lot of these companies are obviously departmentalized, and they all go out and procure their own solutions. So I think it really needs a top-down approach, where the top of the business will provide the platform to the business, and then the different departments around that, the business itself, can actually make use of that, and obviously all help each other out. Yeah. But I think really, yeah, the main issue from that we've seen is that issue of siloed data, and not being able to access data either from third-party suppliers or from even other departments within the same business.
Yeah, there's a lot of data, a lot of information around. As you say, it's about extracting it, understanding it, analysing it, and acting on it, as you say. Katrine, at SJ, what sort of challenges have you encountered this year in terms of moving to a greater digitisation of experiences?
We actually, at this moment, we are actually developing a whole new website for traffic communication that we're going to launch in the middle of December. And what we have done through that is that we've been listening to the customers, what they need, and then we have taken that in and developed through that. But what we have experienced is that the traffic information at the time now is just is concentrating to one train number, but the customer usually travels combining with 2 trains.
Okay.
So, and that's trouble that we have now at the moment, that we can't give accurate information that is bound to the whole journey, if you know what I mean. So that's one of the challenge. And I mean, the whole journey for us can also be that you take one part of train and then you choose to travel further with the bus. We don't have the access, the information that we need for the bus. So we can combine that in one communication to the customer. So that's a challenge for us at the moment.
Yeah, and Jan, I was thinking about in Amsterdam, that point that Katrine just made there about intermodality, lots of information. You've got to work with external partners, with I guess with NS, with the airport, the bike rental companies, cab taxis and stuff. So is that is one of the challenges there about redefining what your business is in terms of your role that you have in your customers' lives? Jan, you're on mute.
Sorry for that. Yeah. No, it is. It is. We have to think of our role, and if we want to still be an endpoint to the customer itself, and we want, of course. So, yeah, we have to work together with all the first and last mile modalities, like the bicycle rentals or car rentals, and you name it. On the other hand, we don't want to offer it ourselves, so we want to have a partnership with them. So that's a challenge to share the information, not only passenger information, because in the Netherlands we have a central platform for all passenger information. So that's for the customer. For at least the public transport, it's been taken care of. So that's a very nice thing that we achieved. But with the other modalities for bicycles, that's still a challenge. And then of course, if you look at pricing, if you offer the total journey from your own company, then we have to make agreements about who's offering the journey, who's selling the journey. And how do you arrange the pricing, right? So that's future. That we are working on that because we need to, but that's still not in place. But for passenger information, we have already, very integrated environments.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Bernardo, building on that in terms of the number of stakeholders, one of the advantages or challenges of digitization is that wealth of data that we have, and there's intrinsic value in that, and particularly in sharing it. And one of the questions that we've got from the audience is, how do you overcome multiple owners, for example, train and bus holding groups, not wanting to provide live data on performance, which would complement a multimodal passenger feed? What's your take on the kind of sharing of data within and out with the sector?
It's a very nice question. So there is a general understanding that data it's now a very valuable asset. The understanding on how to leverage on data is probably a lot less understood, except if you go to big corporations as Google or Facebook or big data players. So I think that depending on where you operate, and this is, for example, the case in the UK, I think that sharing it's something that we either want to do or will be forced by the government to do, given that we work in a concession environment. So we own the data, but to a certain level. Then depending on how much your company is future oriented or it's open to have additional streams of business, we can use somebody else's data and through partnership, as Jan was saying, try to have a much more integrated customer experience and a single shop where customer can buy or get their information. Again, it's a very peculiar aspect, and it's really depending on which market you operate. Here in the UK, everything is made to share as much as possible the data. Then it's more on the paper than in reality, because there's a lot of systems that are pretend to be usable or accessible, but they're not, because they're technologically very old. But at least the will, especially for the authorities, to favor data sharing is there, and that every train operating company is making its own consideration on how to use them and how to integrate them to get the best customer experience.
Is there a parallel?
I hope it does not feel too much political and too much running off the question.
No. It's really interesting area to dig into, because it is fraught with sensitivities, isn't it? Both kind of legal, political, and commercial as well. And that's why it has to be. I think, as you say, there are tremendous opportunities. And would you say there is a parallel between airlines and airports in terms of sharing information? There's that kind of redundant question, isn't there, about who owns the customer? But owning the data is incredibly powerful position to be in, or sharing the data, you'd think would give a better experience, which in turn has to lead to better commercial outcomes. So, Ronaldo, if I may, and again, just quickly, we've got sort of 5 or so minutes left, so if the audience has any other questions, do please fire them in. Ronaldo, on the to go back to your kind of insight perspective, what are the challenges that you see of getting the right information? There's obviously a lot of information that's fairly easy to get hold of and analyze, but do you see the digitization of experiences giving you access to more real insights that you can then use within the business to drive the right sort of change, or are there challenges that you think, actually, we'd really like to know this, but we just can't get that information?
Yeah, I really liked the mentioned path towards machine learning and AI with sensors and stuff, but we do have these discussions at BLS as well, but still I would say a lot of stakeholders and a lot of different positions which maybe do not make that path fast enough. I also really recognize this silo kind of thinking, to put several silos with different data which actually should put all together to really benefit out of them. That's I would say exactly the same as at BLS. We also, it really ends up that also the customer feels that they also have, for example, do still need several logins. That's a big challenge. And we also discussed a lot about this willingness to give you the data to really opt in as a customer. But basically, first interviews shows that that's really not the case, because there are, of course, it makes sense that there are a lot of or not that much early adopters which really use the app. And so when the app is your main touch point to get your information, then maybe it makes sense to share at least a bit of your data, because you then also get much better, much personalized information. And I would say the awareness is already there. So this was kind of a concern within our company, that maybe the passenger, they do not really want to share the data. But I would say at least till now, maybe also because the brand itself is quite okay, well known in the population also. Maybe that helps too. But I would say at least till now, this should be possible from the passenger point of view.
Okay, and do you think the whole digitization will accelerate the community of passengers? So where kind of passengers talk to each other as well as to the rail operator about how to improve things, and sharing information between themselves about what's going on, or delays and that kind of stuff? Does anyone have any thoughts on that sort of community side of things? Nope. Okay, that's fine. That was a question from me, which so that's fine. We'll leave that. There is a question from. We've only got a couple of minutes, so there is a really good question from the audience, and so if anybody wants to pick this up, please do. The question is, what impact do you think access to space data could have on the passenger experience? Now, I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure. Space data is a new one for me, for which I apologise. So, Callum, is that something you've come across?
And I can only assume they're referring there to the amount of space that's available on a train. I mean, obviously, at the moment, that is a key piece of information. As I said earlier on, a lot of the operators have fast-tracked their projects to get that information available to passengers, both in app or at a station. But I think probably some of the operators who are on the call could probably answer that a little bit better from their interactions they've had with customers about what that data means to them.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure that I've understood well the question. That could be if data storage could be an issue.
It was access to space data, and we're because the questioner needs to clarify it. We can do that maybe afterwards. But if the question is around how will access to information about the space on trains, if passengers have more information about that, how will that improve the passenger experience? So is that a really key thing to reassuring passengers what it's going to be like on board, and getting them traveling again if they're a little bit reluctant to at the moment?
I absolutely agree, and this is mainly a sensible topic when it comes to passenger with special needs. So if you're traveling with your buggy, or if you're traveling with a lot of luggages, I bet it's important to know whether there's going to be somebody else occupying your buggy space or your luggage. I mean, it is something similar to what happens when you're waiting at the bus stop in London and it's raining, and you have your kids in your buggy, and all the places are already taken. It's a mix between disappointing and the anxiety of what's going to happen with my next bus. So at the moment, we don't have this information, or we don't have it in a structured way.
Yes.
So it's very useful. It's very difficult to make it available for a customer. At the moment, the only element that saves us is that we have staff on board, and they know or they could know whether how is the situation on board. But a train, it's a long thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Harry? Well, I interpreted the question in relation to COVID. And if that's the case, our Dutch National Railways just started with a booking application on the regular train. So that's like in the aviation. So that's pretty new, and they did a pilot on that. If people were willing to fill in, but they really want to provide information on what train they want to catch, and it's not an actual seat reservation, but almost like that. They want to make some kind of reservation. They're going to get the train. So we have in the railways the information how busy the train is, so we can inform the customers in the same application if there's still space enough to have a safe journey. So that's really interesting development.
Yeah, and we have seen rail operators in their booking systems. So if someone books a particular train, then there's a suggestion that trains that normally run at this time are this busy, really full, or there are spaces, just to give a bit of reassurance. And I guess as time goes on, as we said, using AI, the accuracy of that information can get better and better. So we are unfortunately out of time. So thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you, Bernardo, Callum, Catherine, and Jan. Thank you so much for your thoughts this afternoon. Thank you, the audience, for your indulgence and your questions as well. Thank you to the guys at Terrapin for putting on a fantastic event. There's still a couple more hours to go, so please enjoy the rest of the event. But thank you, everyone, and hopefully fingers crossed, we'll see you in Amsterdam in person next year. But thanks, everyone.
Hope so.
Thank
you, guys.
Hope so.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All the best.